Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna. So we'll begin with the chapter 1 of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela. It has three divisions. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has narrated Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita in three divisions. Adi Leela, which describes the initial first 24 years of activities of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then Madhya Leela, which is after 24 up to 48, and also Antalila, which is basically the last stages that actually includes a longer time, 16 years. Antalila is the last portion of his pastimes on this earth, is 16 years, if I remember. So 24 years plus 16 plus 6 plus 16, or 24 year plus 8 plus 16, something like that. So 48 years. So the chapter begins with the spiritual masters. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than the combined form of Sri Radha and Krishna. He is the life of those devotees who strictly follow in the footsteps of Sri Rupa Goswami, Srila Rupa Goswami. Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Sanatana Goswami are the two principal followers of Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami, who acted as the most confidential servitor of Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, known as Vishwambara in his early life. A direct disciple of Srila Rupa Goswami was Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. The author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, stands as the direct disciple of Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. So in this, we can see in summary here, it's given as introduction is given in this chapter, that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a combined form of Radha and Krishna. The Supreme Absolute Truth being one, none different than from his energy and energetics, is one in originally. That Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu represents the Absolute Truth in the form of the energy and energetic, Sri Radha and Krishna. And he the life of those devotees who strictly follow in the footsteps of Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. Even though Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave so many instructions with his personal behavior, activities, and instructions also, he primarily instructed Rupa and Sanatana Goswami to write volumes of books on science of Krishna consciousness. Thus, Rupa and Sanatana Goswami are two principal followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. However, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had personal associates, confidential servitors, who are Swarup Damodara and Ramananda Raya. Rupa and Sanatana Goswami learned the science of Krishna consciousness from Swarup Damodar Goswami. Now, Raghunath Das Goswami, who is another disciple of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but actually he directly learned from Rupa Goswami. And the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita is Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. He actually a direct disciple of Srila Rupa Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami. So basically, from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is Krishna and Radha and Krishna, from him comes Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. Okay? And Rupa and Sanatana Goswami actually learns from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's principal servitor, confidential servitor, Swarup Damodar. Okay. And Rupa Goswami had a disciple, Raghunath Das Goswami. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami learned from Rupa Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami. And this Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is none other than the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So this gives the authenticity of Chaitanya Charitamrita. We are very fortunate to have it. Actually, due course of time, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita book is kind of very rarely available, the original book. Bhaktivinoda Thakur worked very hard. He searched for the bona fide book. Finally, he got it. It was not available, this book, in 18th century. In 18th century, actually, 18th and 19th century, this book manifested in full-fledged, in its full authenticity. Anyone else wants to read? Let's make it group reading so we can share.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah, you can please read loudly this paragraph.
The direct disciple of Sri Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami was Srila Narottama Das Thakur, who accepted Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti as his servitor. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur accepted Srila Jagannath Das Babaji, the spiritual master of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who in turn accepted Srila Gaurakishore Das Babaji, the spiritual master of Om Vishnupada Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, the divine master of our humble self.
Very nice, thank you. So here Prabhupada establishes again further the authenticity of the transcendental book. This shows how one should accept any teaching such bona fide teaching, but we have to show the lineage and where it is coming from. So before Srila Prabhupada writes his translations and explains on Chaitanya Charitamrita, he establishes the authenticity of this book, that the readers know where it is coming from. It is not the mental speculation, a story written by, compiled by Srila Prabhupada, but rather he said that from Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami comes Narottam Das Thakur. And from Narottam Das Thakur, he teaches to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur teaches to Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, which many of you have seen. He's in the picture, very elderly personality in the altar and the extreme right. And he teaches to his disciple, in the Siksha disciple, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And further, he teaches to Gaurakishore Das Babaji Maharaj. And further, he teaches to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Then Prabhupada says that I learned from my spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur. So I will give a couple of points here that is a good lesson for all of us, followers of ISKCON. How? Because the title is the spiritual masters, it's not spiritual master. And who are the spiritual masters will be elaborated by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in this chapter. But however, our parampara, if you see, is not directly Diksha parampara. Like Diksha means not necessarily the parampara has directly disciples of their initiated devotees, initiated spiritual masters. Right? Here we can see Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, right? His spiritual master Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but he's not a Diksha Guru. He's a Siksha only. So similarly, Gaurakishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he's a disciple of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but he's a Siksha Guru only. However, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is actually a direct disciple of Gaurakishore Das Babaji Maharaj. And at the same time, Srila Prabhupada is the direct disciple of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur. So our parampara, our mode is not always diksha. One may have taken diksha from other spiritual master, but the parampara comes in diksha and siksha both. Okay. Anyone wants to try this? Any comments so far? I would like to have. Does it make sense? Can we go with this flow?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else wants to try reading this third paragraph?
I can read.
Please.
Since we belong to this chain of disciplic succession from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this edition of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita will contain nothing newly manufactured by our tiny brains, but only remnants of food originally eaten by the Lord himself. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does not belong to the mundane plane of the three qualitative modes. He belongs to the transcendental plane beyond the reach of the imperfect sense perception of a living being. Even the most erudite mundane scholar cannot approach the transcendental plane unless he submits himself to transcendental sound with a receptive mood. For in that mood, only can he realize the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What will be described herein, therefore, has nothing to do with the experimental thoughts created by the speculative habits of inert minds. The subject matter of this book is not a mental concoction, but a factual spiritual experience that one can realize only by accepting the line of disciplic succession described above. Any deviation from that line will bewilder the reader's understanding of the mystery of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is a transcendental literature meant for the postgraduate study of one who has realized all the Vedic literatures, such as the Upanishads and Vedanta Sutra, and their natural commentaries, such as Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita.
Very nice. Thank you so much. Any reflections, any comments on this?
I have a quick question. This is like a very practical question.
Yeah.
If we haven't like fully consumed the Bhagavatam or the Gita, should we even be attempting this?
Yes, from the devotees, with the help of the devotees. In association of devotees, we can always hear.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, very nice. Because otherwise, it's going to be difficult. Because it says that what didn't say the subject matter of is postgraduate. Yeah, which is the transcendental literature meant for the postgraduate study of one who has realized all the Vedic literatures, such as the Upanishads and Vedanta Sutras. So realized means also we can say, as Prabhupada said, Bhakti Vedanta, who understands the purport of the Vedas, conclusions of the Vedas. So the conclusions of the Vedas is Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is the personality. And rendering devotional service is the highest pure devotional service should be the ultimate goal of everyone. The whole Vedic literature directs us towards that. As we discussed before, the Veda, this material world is by default is ignorance, tamasa. So the Vedas gives us the knowledge, and knowledge is that the Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and rendering devotional service, pure devotional service to that personality is the ultimate goal of all living entities. So that at least one has to know, because Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita is the practical demonstration of that knowledge. Make sense? Chaitanya Charitamrita is the practical demonstration of that knowledge, how to render devotional service. Because Lord Krishna says, oh, I have come before. I came and I gave theoretical knowledge in the form of Bhagavad Gita. but I did not give the practical demonstration. So that's why he comes, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is author. He writes, compiles the Lord Chaitanya's activities. Any other comment? Question? Here again, further we see Prabhupada writes, this Chaitanya Charitamrita comes from the disciplic success, chain of disciplic success, and from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Nothing but newly manufactured, nothing has been manufactured and added, but only remnants of the food originally eaten by the Lord himself as a prasad. Does not belong to any mundane plane of the three qualitative modes, is completely pure and transcendental. And it is beyond the reach of the imperfect senses. So sometimes, people try to use the intellectuality, intelligence to understand, but it is beyond our speculation. Even the most erudite mundane scholar cannot approach the transcendental plane unless he submits himself to the transcendental sound with a receptive mood. Lord Krishna explains, the senses are higher than the senses. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is higher than the mind. Okay, soul is still higher than the intelligence. So one has to, one can understand only in spiritual platform, transcendental platform. So there won't be any speculation. Rather, with complete faith and submissiveness, one has to listen and the subject matter. So then the mercy will flow. How? Because without Lord's mercy, no one will be able to understand that activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I know due course of time that doubts will come into our mind and heart. Is that right? The activities are right. So with proper submissive mode and proper prayers, what happens, the mercy of the Lord Chaitanya flows to the disciplic succession, and he allows us to understand. By his mercy, we'll be able to understand. Make sense? Are we getting so far? Should we proceed?
Yes, Prabhu, thank you.
Yeah, very nice. And it's the example is, I can give one more example, that as a bulb, an electric bulb, it'll function. It'll function only there's a connection of electricity flow. So we know that if bulb is glowing, we know that the electricity is flowing. It is connected to the original source, which is the distribution of the electricity. So similarly, in a submissive mode, the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita has to be accepted without challenging from the bona fide sampradaya. Then the mercy of Lord Chaitanya will flow, and the disciple or the reader will be able to understand the transcendental activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees. Okay, so anyone who wants to try this verse, this paragraph? Okay, this edition of, okay, you wanna go?
Yeah, Hare Krishna. The edition of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita is presented for the study of sincere scholars who are really seeking the absolute truth. It is not the arrogant scholarship of a mental speculator, but a sincere effort to serve the order of a superior authority whose service is life and soul of this humble effort. It does not deviate even slightly from the revealed scriptures, and therefore anyone who follows in the disciplic line will be able to realize the essence of this book simply by the method of oral reception.
Very good. Thank you. Another very important point here is given, if you all contemplate on this, is generally in spiritual science, if you see, there's different aspects of the spiritual science. But in this world at this time, the spiritual science is presented as faith. Right? In the modern context, people in Western world, people say the spirituality is a faith. What faith? This faith or that faith? Yeah, somewhat little faith is needed, but that faith has to be funded with logic. One has to use one's intelligence. Science without religion is mental speculation, and religion without science is what do you call blind faith, isn't it? Science, spirituality, religion without science is sentiment. So religion study is encouraging to have discussions and argument and challenging questioning. So that's the whole Bhagavad Gita is also, Arjuna is inquiring, okay, why this doubts, this doubt, that doubt? Are you really the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Did anyone, any place you remember in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asking Krishna, in one sense, he's clarifying his doubt. The authenticity of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone remember? Any portion of Bhagavad Gita?
What was the question, Prabhuji?
Any portion of Bhagavad Gita where Arjuna was trying to clarify or question about Lord Krishna's position as a Supreme Personality of Godhead?
Well, he needed a clarification in chapter 4 when Krishna said that I give this knowledge to Vivaswan. And that time, Arjuna wanted a clarification that he's very senior by birth to you. So how am I to understand that you gave this knowledge to Vivaswan?
Very nice. Wonderful point. That's the point I was trying to refer. Thank you. So Arjuna did not accept blindly. He clarified that, well, you both, we are kind of cousins. We born in the same time. So give me logically now. So question and inquiring clarification is challenging is there in the spirituality at the beginning, certain level. But once we submit, Arjuna submitted, then finally Arjuna submitted. What is that? I accept everything you say, oh Krishna. I'm your disciple, I accept everything you say, and I want to render service to you. So that's called when you submit. So here we can see that this Chaitanya Charitamrita is beyond any such kind of arguments now, logical arguments. It is not the arrogant scholarship of the mental speculator, but a sincere effort to serve the order of a superior authority. So how we develop mode, after discussion, how we develop mode. The whole purpose of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam is to make a soul submissive. Because originally we challenged the Lord and we did not want to follow his path, his instructions, and we are suffering. Now the scriptures are bringing us, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and bringing us, making us submissive. And that's where Chaitanya Charitamrita, that since a disciple, how a true disciple should be, sincere effort to serve the order of the superior authority, whose service is the life and soul of this humble effort. It does not deviate even slightly from the revealed scriptures. It is aligned with the revealed scriptures. Therefore, anyone who follows in the disciplic line will be able to realize the essence of this book simply by the method of oral reception. By hearing, one will be able to get the same benefit as being with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally associating. Thank you. We have some more time. Anyone wants to try this, read to this paragraph?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, please.
The first chapter of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita begins with 14 Sanskrit verses that describes the absolute truth. Then the next 3 Sanskrit verses describe the principal deities of Vrindavana, namely Sri Radha Madana Mohana, Sri Radha Govinda Deva, and Sri Radha Gopinathaji. The first of the 14 verses is a symbolic representation of the supreme truth, and the entire first chapter is in the actuality devoted to this single verse, which describes Lord Chaitanya in his 6 different transcendental expansions.
Very nice. Thank you. Here, Prabhupada writes that Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, in this first chapter, in the beginning, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami writes in 14 verses. So in that 14 verses, he explains the absolute truth. And what is absolute truth? Different transcendentalist has different realizations. As Srimad Bhagavatam explains that, yes, Brahmeti, those who are impersonalist, Brahma Jyoti realized, for them, Brahman realization is transcendental, absolute truth. The yogis is Paramatma realization is absolute truth. However, for devotees, everything, Brahmeti, Paramatmati, and Bhagavaneti Sabdate. So absolute truth, understanding of the absolute truth is 3 aspects of the absolute truth we accept. When we accept Bhagavan, feature of the Lord, it means we also accept the Paramatma and also Brahman, the effulgence form also. Right? So similarly, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he is describing the absolute truth in these 14 verses, which is going to come. And then the 3 deities are mentioned here, which is, I will give briefly, many of our congregation members may not know it, that describes the 3 deities, Sri Radha Madan Mohan, Sri Radha Govinda Dev, and Sri Radha Gopinathji. These 3 deities are principal deities of Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Now, they are, when we practice, any religious practice or any endeavor you do, there has to be 3 phases. One is the knowledge, second is the endeavor, and third is the perfection. I tried to put in my language, is basically, first we understand, who am I, why I need to do this, who is Krishna, who is this world, what is my relationship with Krishna. This inquiries, that knowledge is called our relationship between the living entity and my relationship with Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. That covers the Sambandha Jnana. And Radha Madan Mohan is the deity for Sambandha Jnana, Sambandha Vigraha. It's called Sambandha Vigraha. So we pray to Radha Madan Mohan to attain that knowledge. And now, once we have the Sambandha, once we know the relationship, as Prabhupada gives an example, when one gets married, we understand each other, then get married. After marriage, there's activities involves. There are activities, service to each other. So many things are involved after marriage. Just marriage is not end. From marriage, the relationships in starts. So in Avideya, Sambandha, Avideya, and Prayojana. Avideya is Radha Govinda Dev. Govind Dev is worshipped while practicing the devotional service. In this phase, through our sadhana bhakti, by following the regulated practice, we pray to Radha Govind Dev. Is the principal deity for all the practitioners. Okay, and Prayojana. Prayojana means ultimate attainment, which is the deity of Radha Gopinathji. So these three vigrahas, the Madan Mohan, Radha Madan Mohan, which is established by Sanatana Goswami, Sri Radha Govinde, which has been established by Rupa Goswami, and Sri Radha Gopinathji has been established by Raghunath Das Goswami. These deities are our worshipable deities, our parampara vigrahas, you can say. So first 14 verses symbolize symbolic representation of that absolute truth, supreme truth. And this entire chapter is in actuality devoted to this single verse, which describes Lord Chaitanya in his 6 transcendental expansions. Okay, any comments so far? I hope I'm not rushing too fast. Okay, who's going to read the next? After this, we will have some question answers. Okay.
May I, Prabhuji?
Yeah, please.
The first manifestation described is the spiritual master, who appears in 2 plenary parts called the initiating spiritual master and instructing spiritual master. They are identical because both of them are phenomenal manifestations of the supreme truth. Next described are the devotees, who are divided into 2 classes, namely the apprentices and the graduates. Next are the incarnations or avatars of the Lord, who are explained to be non-different from the Lord. These incarnations are considered in 3 divisions: incarnations of the property of the Lord, incarnations of his qualities, and incarnations of his authority. In this connection, Lord Sri Krishna's direct manifestations and his manifestations for transcendental pastimes are discussed. Next considered are the potencies of the Lord, of which 3 principal manifestations are described: the consorts in the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha, the queens of Dvarkadama, and, highest of all, the damsels of Rajadama. Finally, there is the Supreme Lord himself, who is the fountainhead of all these manifestations. Hare Krishna.
Very nice, thank you. So here we can see how this chapter and is describing here. The manifestation, the first manifestation described is the spiritual master. And whose manifestation is referring to? Basically, the absolute truth is realized in his 6 transcendental expansions. It's not 5, 6 transcendental expansions, you all see, right? The absolute truth is realized. And what is the first manifestation is? The spiritual master. And that spiritual master who appears in 2 plenary parts. 2 plenary parts. It's none different than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, called initiating spiritual master and instructing spiritual master. So we discussed at the beginning itself how our parampara is initiating and instructing both in parampara. And they're identical, because both of them are phenomenal manifestations of the supreme truth. They are not. Both initiate. Only thing we need to understand right mode. There's so much of confusion in this world and so much of confusion in this movement also, because this portion of teachings is not clear. We have never tried to understand what is the spiritual master and how the different manifestations of absolute truth in the form of spiritual masters. Then another aspect is another expansion of the absolute truth is devotees. Devotees. So how we are understanding the Lord in different manifestations. So we don't just see Lord is Krishna with his 3-fold bending form just standing there. No, knowing Krishna means knowing his expansions, knowing his incarnations, knowing his manifestations. Okay, that divided into 2, namely apprentices and graduates. So in devotees also the different levels. And the third and next is incarnations also. Knowing Krishna, knowing absolute truth, also we understand, we do not neglect what is incarnations. it's a monotheistic. It's one absolute truth, but he incarnates avatars. So knowing Krishna is also knowing about him. So when we know someone, we may know only a portion of it about the person. But the more and more our relationships increases, then that knowledge about that person increases. We come to know, oh, this person is a personal life also. Oh, he's a good soccer player, or he's a good artist, or he's so and so. So similarly, it includes the spiritual masters. It has one of the aspects, one of the manifestation. The devotee is another manifestation. The incarnation is another manifestation. Okay. So in these incarnations, again, it comes incarnations of the potency. So incarnation of the quality, Guna Avatara or Sakyaves Avatara, and incarnation of his authority, spiritual teacher. So Lord Krishna's direct manifestations and his manifestations of transcendental pastimes are discussed. Next, considered are the potencies of the Lord, and of which three principal manifestations, which is one is concerts in the Vaikuntha and all the Lakshmis. That's one of the potency. The second one is divided queens of Dwarka Dham. That is another potency. And highest of all is the damsels of Brajadham, the gopis and Radharani. So these are all the concerts of the potencies of the Lord. Finally, there is the Supreme Lord himself, who is the fountainhead of all these manifestations. So now we see the six manifestations of the absolute truth. Okay, so with this, I'll stop here because we'll be studying Bhagavad Gita. I'll talk to Radhaman Prabhu next time. We can move it to 8:45. So we can have, but today we'll take a couple of minutes for any questions or comments, reflections.
Prabhuji, I just want a quick reaffirmation in terms of, I haven't read entirely Srimad Bhagavatam, right? And I've read Bhagavad Gita plenty of times, but this is, diving into Chaitanya Charitamrita without having read the Srimad Bhagavatam is okay, yes? Or as long as we're in the company of the devotees.
Thank you. This is, you are repeating Sherry Mataji's question.
I've joined late.
Yeah, she had already we discussed this. You read Chaitanya Charitamrita with in association of notice. Shiksha Guru, we learn because Chaitanya Charitamrita is actually teaches us the activities of the Lord and the practical demonstration of the Lord and his devotees. So as a Gaudiya Vaishnava follower, the moment we are accepting Krishna consciousness, ISKCON, means we are also expected to learn the culture of Gaudiya culture. So that is Chaitanya Charitamrita gives. Make sense? Yeah. So we can always learn from in association of devotees. Any other reflections, questions, or comments? We can take two more. How did you like so far? If you don't have any comments, how was it so far? Are we good? Is it helping?
Yes, Prabhu. I'm excited. I think this will be really interesting. I've been curious about it for a long time, but I didn't approach it because I'm still approaching a lot of the other literature. So, yeah, thank you.
Yes, this is very a systematic study, profound science. Srimad Bhagavatam, still if you see, Krishnadas Sukadeva Goswami very gradually gives this whole Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendent body of Lord Krishna. Ultimately, the 10th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, you can say actually, the final canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, even though we have two more cantos. So the 10th canto is the face of the Lord. So basically it's called Samam Bonam. No, then one question can come, Krishna has his personal life also, right? Krishna has his own personal life also. The Srimad Bhagavatam deals with the great kings and the great devotees in this material world, and Krishna has a personal life also. How does he act? What does he do? So this Chaitanya Charitamrita is, that's is called postgraduate, but it's very systematic study. So in the middle, we will find some technicalities, a lot of technicalities, and it is mixed with so many wonderful stories as well. I'm sure you all will relish, and with together.
Yeah, just want to make one point, Ruji. The Chaitanya Charitamrita I was hearing class, so in that it was said that Chaitanya Charitamrita. So when Krishna came as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, he's preaching about he's doing a preaching program. Like he's speaking Bhagavad Gita, he's giving instructions to fight, and he's always preaching. And then in Chaitanya Leela, Krishna is actually practicing what he's preaching. So so Chaitanya Charitamrita is helping us to learn directly from Krishna how to practice it.
Very nice.
Just the thought,
Yeah, thank you for putting that again. Actually, I shared already that. Krishna explained, said that I have given this theoretically, but there is no practical demonstration. So thank you. So with Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Lord is teaching with his own example, just like mother-in-law teaches to daughter-in-law through her own example. Very nice. Any other point? We don't have to rush while studying this. This goal is not to finish. Goal is to meditate on these activities and apply to our life, whatever degree we can. But simply by hearing, it will bring an immense transformation into our life. So should we stop it here for today? Is it okay? Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpatarivyaschа kripa sindhuvevacha Vaishnavyo
Namo Namah.
Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki
Ki
jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Everyone have a wonderful